Young Padawan, you've leveled up to a full Jedi into level 2. We're talking about leaderboards, badges, and points. Let's play. Are you ready to dig into a world themed with Mario? Alright, let's talk about leaderboards. I'd say there are two different types. Maybe in that first half of those game show type games we looked at in the last level or last show video, half of them had a leaderboard of some sort. Almost all of those were fast-paced, competitive ranking systems of which a person or a team had the most knowledge in that moment or had them quickly would be at the top of the leaderboard. A benefit of that type of leaderboard is that it can push some students to try and do more and advance higher up on the leaderboard due to that competitive nature. The downside is that not all students thrive in competition. And we talked about the issue that some students need more time to process and think and do it that way. So we talked about like Kahoot, quizzes, even like a Jeopardy, those type of games have that type of leaderboard. The second type is getting points for activities. So you can be on a leaderboard for earning points for doing a certain activity or completing a quest or a job or almost anything. They're way more flexible in nature, and you can adapt them to almost any situation or any goal you might have for your class. I tend to like these for gamification of a classroom because of that flexibility they have within things. Let's look at a couple examples and talk about them. Here's one that's based on participation. So this one's got the kids' actual names, which if it's just in your class, it wouldn't really matter. If you do it publicly, I would be very hesitant to do that. So in this case, the teacher's assigning points for participating in different ways during class. This could be a one-time board, or it could be a running total from day to day or week to week. This could live on a clipboard technically, but then you lose the ability for people to view it in real time. If you want to print it out, you could hang it on a bulletin board or whiteboard, but you can also just make it digital and add extra features. The image you see is one that's made from a spreadsheet that runs through Flippity and made it pretty. The template's pretty straightforward, but you can alter some things to add like your unique touch to it if you want. For example, this is showing their total points, but if you click on the hamburger menu next to overall, you'll be able to see the leaders in each individual event that these students are scoring points in. So it's from a PE teacher. When you click on that more menu, you can see who's leading for most points in hurdles, 100-meter dash, long jump, etc. And then when you minimize it, you come back to that total score of Ashton being the leader at 8,893 points. These are digital, but pretty darn easy to set up in the grand scheme of things. Let's look at another one. All right, here's another one that's another leaderboard, but participation is just one way to do it. You could also add any activity as a way to earn points. Could be your warm-up, could be an exit ticket, could be points for helping a classmate with something they're struggling with, etc. As you see in this one, you can also have the students earn points both for themselves and for their teammates, and have those teams compete for which is more inclusive. You can then decide if you want to have rewards, and if you do, will those be individual rewards or team rewards? And what would they be? Free homework pass, time in a special chair, pizza party, dance party. The sky's the limit, but just note, the more physical the reward and the more craved it is by the kids, the more likely they are to try and cheat your point system and get around the system itself. If they're internal things they want, or instinctually want to get on their own, or social aspects, that'll work better and are things you should try and do before going for physical rewards. Right, this one is also made from a spreadsheet that we'll look at a little more in depth later, as it's part of a much more complex gamified classroom. As you can see a little bit here from the fact that in this class, their points are considered gold, but what it does show is that they do have teams here. In this case, they call them kingdoms to go more with the gamification nomenclature. I also like that the teacher chose to have the students have a character name for two reasons. One, it allows for students to be anonymous if need be. You could just display the character name on your leaderboard. And 2, it gets more buy-in from the student when they create their character's name, the traits, the looks, and we can dive into that in a future level of what that might be. But by having the student own who they are, who they want to be, what characteristics they have, they then really care about how Mini Vixen is doing or Shadow is playing along. Kind of the same way you can do it. In some of my courses, I've got you guys building a character profile. Haven't decided if you'll do it in this one or not, but if that's the case, it allows you to be another role along the way. All right. This final one shows us how students are able to level up into different ranks, each with its own icon. So the person who built this one put it on their blog and give some details of how you would use it. I'll put those in the resources. And on the next slide, I'll show that they also have badges tied in, which is our next topic. So another part of their spreadsheet, you can see a little bit here on the right side shows their rank and total experience points. Those total experience points then on the farther over on the spreadsheet also show different badges that they've earned. So adventurer or evolution or geologic time that tie into class activities they're doing. And certain kids earn these badges, certain ones have not. We'll talk more about that as we go down, but there's lots of ways to do badges. You can build a spreadsheet from scratch, but I highly discourage that. Whether it's a paper one you do or a digital one, I'd say go find someone else's, go find a template, and adjust as you go. I'll have a few examples for you in the resources, some in this section, and some more in level 4 with the deeper gamified classrooms. All right, so let's officially talk about badges. With great power comes great responsibility. Maybe, hopefully you know what movie that's from. Movie, TV show, series, comic, Spider-Man. So his Uncle Ben said that to him when in general beforehand, but he then ties it into his abilities as Spider-Man to then do good for the community. I'm saying it now because while badges are just another component of ways to gamify your classroom, using them well is tricky. They can do a lot of good things, or they can be taken for granted or not used or be as a competitive component. So you can make the badges by hand or digitally, but again, digital badges are almost always less work for the teacher to assign and track and display. So it's that tricky thing with badges is the balance between the ease of getting the badge and its worth towards the player. If you make the badges too easy to get, no one will care about them. If they're too hard, no one will be willing to attempt to get them. So in a perfect world, the first level of badge will be relatively easy to get, and the later ones will be increasingly difficult to achieve. Here we can see a few more badges that teacher used from a few slides ago, and that they can earn along the way, and what it took for them to get it. This is on the teacher side of the spreadsheet. Whether or not the teacher shows this to the kids is kind of up to you. I like to be relatively transparent, unless you're talking about Easter eggs, which we'll get to later. And so, when possible, tell them what they need to do to get the badge. Usually in games, you can see like a progress bar, you're 30,000 experience points away from the next level, or you need to get 3 kills to level up with here, or capture 3 chickens, whatever it might be. Then you can get this next badge. Most of them are laid out pretty clearly. All right, and then I'll show you a few examples like this pause-sensitive pals or no problema badges that are aimed a little more for a slightly younger audience. So I'd think of these as your primary or intermediate kids, but they might even work for some kids in your middle or high school, depending on what your students are like or what your class theme is you're doing. So these are designed to be printed out, but they could easily work just as well digitally. Here's a few more examples. Seal of approval, the inspirational innovators, officially outstanding, which I think doesn't make sense because fishes can't stand, but that's just me, and Hall of Fame heroes. So the one I pulled these from, they had like 16 or 20 total, and each one had a description to go along with what it was used to describe the badge and how you earned it. All right, our third and I believe last section in this section in this level is points. But beforehand, I want to make one last note on leaderboards. So some teachers use them as their grade. And then rather than giving percentages and averaging them out, they do a total set of points for them for the term, like let's say 1,000. And by doing different activities, the students can earn points towards that, always moving up, gaining more points rather than risking sliding farther down and not being able to recover. This is really good for showing progress and improvement rather than avoiding mistakes, which I like. But some teachers have fallen into the trap of giving points towards a grade that aren't linked to learning, which then detracts from having it be an accurate reflection of their grade. Ideally, you'd have standards tied into each unit or challenge as we move forward. If you're thinking about doing the point system, so somebody is saying, like, oh, this kid got an A in class, but if their grade went from a C to an A because they brought in 16 boxes of Kleenex or extra credit, that's not an accurate reflection of their grade. Same deal as if in your gamified classroom the kid gets 400 experience points because they brought in cookies or something, like if the task was to high five a friend. That's helpful and it's good behavior, but it doesn't tie into what they know and they're learning, so just be cautious with how you do points for grades. So points can be used in multiple ways. First one can be as class money or reward system. Again, I'd be careful with physical rewards in class, but class money system they can spend. You can have them spend on lots of things that are not physical. But if you're gonna do physical things, it could be food or drink, could be a special seating or partner choices, could be becoming a teacher helper, certain jobs, could be a homework pass. I'd make sure though that your essential tasks you need them to do to show their learning outcomes aren't skippable unless you have multiple ways they can show it for their final assessment and you knowing their knowledge. And you could also use the points for grading like we just talked about. Just be cautious. All right, then let's talk about points being used as spent for like artistic or cosmetic character options. We talked about kind of building your character earlier. Sometimes usually in video games, you can spend points or coins or earnings or real money, is what game developers want you to do these days, towards buying a new outfit or buying a magical wand or a new sword. You could still have kids do that, allow them to level up their digital character or a physical one and give them some new look to their thing. You could give them some kind of combat or power-up, some new weapon or strength or ability. One of the in-depth classrooms we'll look at in level 4 has got some of those options as they get more things. You could also use the points for gifts. They can gift those points or spend them towards helping a classmate. This is good for community culture, and depending on your gifts or the effects they have on them, could also help morale and learning down the road. Oh, one more note on the combat or power-ups. Depending how deep you go into the story arc, which we haven't done much with that yet, but like the theme and talking about like how much you go into the Star Wars world or Mario or whatever your topic is, if you change what you call your assignments and assessments, could be a part of this. So if you want to go from having tests or projects to having boss fights or battles, you might then allow your students to use points or currency to change how they fight your boss or assessment, possibly with power-ups or accommodations that don't interfere with showing what they know in the assessment. All right, so then points can also be used to maybe find or get a hint for where an Easter egg might be, or to open an Easter egg. If you don't know what an Easter egg is, I'll give you a quick description of it. So Easter eggs are things usually in video games, although they're sometimes also in board games or websites, that are like a hidden surprise that's not told about. There are special keys you can hit on like an old Nintendo systems. It's found in like Mario games especially. There's like hidden walls you can walk through or tubes you go down like to a extra level. Things like that are often placed as like hidden links or images or things you click on that have a hidden link that'll take you somewhere else. expand the world and make it more interesting. So what's inside that could be just an inside joke, could be a hidden link, could be a secret quest. We'll talk more about quests in a future level. Or if they find it, it could also give them another power-up like we talked about before. Give them some special prize, a special badge. It could be an ability to have or just some kind of recognition of them finding it. So that last piece, points could be used towards quests, which we'll talk about more in the future. All right, then I'm going to show you a spreadsheet that I built based on different badges and descriptions. So right now, this is one I built for teaching people how to use Google Sheets. That's based off of Alice Keeler's spreadsheet. Both these will be linked in your resources. So once you do the task, it shows how much experience you earn, 5 in this top row, and you check it off. You then gain experience, and this bar up here will change. And you then will evolve or change what your badge or what you are in this case. If I jump to the next one, as you earn some of these, this person's they're now level 8, 14 badges. Their experience bar shows how close they are to getting to the next level. And they've now changed into I think it's a Peregrine Falcon. I built this in a different district where they were the tigers, so the animals kept getting more and more fierce until they worked their way into a tiger when they completed all the objectives, met all the experience points, and got to the end. So that's one more way you can use points, badges, leaderboards in your classroom, any combination of these. These will also tie in well for what we do in level 3 and level 4. So be cognizant of that, take notes, and then think about how you might want to tie that in if you decide to do any of the more deep gamification pieces we talk about in the next sections. Thanks, let's have fun, and I'll see you soon.